Boom, what's up guys? Byron Rodgers here, and this is a review, a quick audit on Scott Babb and his Libre Knife Fighting System. Obviously I didn't get a good look at it. I mean, it was one day, but just to understand some of the basic or foundational principles, I think it was a positive experience overall for sure. I'm focusing on being more of a full spectrum warrior, so I can be better at protection. And so a lot of the stuff you'll see in my journey is going to be oriented that way. So I'm primarily a firearms guy, pistol really guy, because that in my opinion is the katana, the modern katana for us right now. We're carrying those around and fighting each other with them. It's the most potent weapon you can carry around with yourself generally and move through the public with. So that's where I'm at the moment, and that's what I carry a lot every single day. But I also have a knife that I carry every single day. Maybe I'll do a review about it, but I want to learn more, so I'm digging into these edge work specialists. We had Tom Kier on the Executive Protection Lifestyle podcast this last year. It was an awesome episode. Go check that out. Hopefully we'll have Scott Babb on here as well this next year. I'm gonna bug him about that, but the goal is, in my opinion, to be efficient and proficient at protection or combat, from zero to hero, from bald naked all the way up to fully kitted and fitted with night vision and PEC 2s and whatever, PEC 4s, whatever you're carrying, all the way up and all the way back down. If you can carry it, you can fight with it, and we'll let everyone on the internet argue about how realistic or relevant that is. I'm fine with that. Nonetheless, I just try to do the best to be the best of what I got, and knife fighting edged weapon work is in there, so I'm starting to chase down more of these guys who use this art.
Whoa, what's going down? I'm chilling with Libre. Learn how to use these things. It's gonna be good. Gotta get that full spectrum warrior thing going on. Boom.
Another piece of it is for executive protection, what I do for a living. You can get edged weapons, and for the vigilant traveler or as a civilian, you can get edged weapons into places you can't get firearms into. So it's another weapon option for us to take more places. And so having that full spectrum of skills from hand to hand all the way up to firearms is relevant, because you find yourself in these scenarios throughout the course of your life and time. Nonetheless, Scott's content was great. The first thing I noticed, we kind of chopped it up at the beginning of the day, and the first thing I noticed is just that he was a down-to-earth guy. I asked him if he had invented or created his own system, because I was still kind of getting oriented. I was like, so you've created this system, this is your system? And he's like, I don't like to say that, I don't like to call it that. He said something to the effect of, there are so many people that have helped me put this together and consolidate this system, so I don't like to say that. And then he said another term, another way he likes to say it. He's just the organizer of this information. So I thought that was great. It was good to train with a guy who has that type of humility. I really respect people that are like, they don't point at themselves. They're not like, I'm the one, even though they've chosen to be the one and be the person to contribute and serve the world with their gift and their skill. They still don't point at themselves and say, I'm the one. And I respect people like that. I try to be someone like that. So that I found really pleasant and intriguing and respectable. Then we got into the ology of what it was he was teaching, and that was very positive. I thought the whole kind of knife fighting thing would be intuitive, having done a little bit of, martial arts over the course of my life and in the Marine Corps, and since I've been out and stuff like that, I kind of thought it would be more intuitive. But what I found inevitably as we started kind of drilling these moves and we started moving through the different techniques and tactics that he was showing us, I found that just like with gunfighting, your brain needs to write some programming. So you really need to actually practice and drill and dry fire these strikes, these combinations, and it was kind of humbling to see that, I consider myself a pretty athletic guy. I'm not playing any sports like normal sports, but I do competitively shoot constantly, so I am still focusing on speed and agility and accuracy and these things. But I found that with trying to execute these strikes with a blade, it really does take some, you have to drill it, you have to practice it, you have to look at it as something that, hey, you know what, I'm gonna get good with a blade. I'm gonna start working a few minutes a day on these, at least a few strikes that I'm gonna take with me and always have with me, you know. Because you're not just going to be able to just do it. You know, some people are more athletic, but if you want to be proficient, you want to play at a high level, you're going to have to actually, it's going to be like learning an instrument. That gave me an instant respect for this game, you know, and I realized as well as we were looking at the anatomy, he has these really cool rash guards you can throw on the Bob, you know, the man-sized punching bag dummy, and it shows you the anatomy of a human. It exposes it to you so you can really pay attention to getting your strikes down. And of course, when it comes to combat, accuracy is a principle that is always in play. And so understanding where to strike, how to strike what, you know, is this a stab, is this a cut, is this a switch, is this a timer? Understanding the human anatomy was another huge piece that is very relevant to understanding knife fighting, and he has built into his system the perfect medium, the perfect mode for you to use to organically understand what is necessary in order to for you to organically understand what's necessary in order for you to disable or end a fight quickly, efficiently, and effectively. And I thought that was great. So you don't have to necessarily sit down and really, you know, it's happening organically as you're training. You're understanding the anatomy, you're understanding the targets, you're understanding the timers and the switches, and things like that. Timers have to do with bleeding out, switches have to do with taking away the ability to use a joint because you put a knife in it, things like that. Timers have to do with, you know, severing blood veins and vessels and things like that will cause someone to bleed out. So this is the ology, like this is the nitty gritty of what it is you're really, really training to do. And just like the Bible says, there's a time for everything under the sun. A time for peace, a time for war, a time to take life, and a time to let live.
So when he does this, then I move past this and I start doing the technique on the body. So first pass, we're just gonna get the eye and then go into the lung here like we did initially. And just to mix this up, use any eye attack you want to be covered. You can hit the eye spike and he'll give the reaction. Here, you can face edge, get the reaction. Eye plus, get the reaction. Horizontal flick. So any eye attack you want to use, you can pass to get the slow punch right here.
Nonetheless, we moved into really what he was doing. I learned the accuracy is important. I learned that actually really practicing this stuff was very important. And the techniques were, a lot of them were simple, but they required a lot of accuracy. And what I saw while I was there training with him, and just that quick one day down and dirty, this is how you fight with the tools you carry, was the very beginning of a system that, you know, I think any civilian who wants to learn how to do a lot more with just your pocket knife or just whatever blade it is you're carrying would do some good to go and check out and learn a lot from. Because, you know, we all carry around weapons, we carry around pocket knives, we carry around edged weapons because we think we're cool or because whatever. But when you really understand what you're doing and you understand just a few layers of how to attack with this weapon, how to, you know, I don't want to say defend because it's not quite the right weapon for that, but really how to attack with this weapon, it puts you on a completely different plane of proficiency and efficiency with regards to being able to protect yourself and your family. The morning began somewhat simply with strategies for attacking the eyes, the face, and administering blows that weren't actually necessarily fatal, but would end or stop a fight. There's an understanding given to us by Scott about really knife fights and, you know, the efficiency and the effectiveness of taking out an eye or causing face bleeds to slow an opponent down. rather than taking their life. And I'll let him kind of explain more about that. But if you're in a blade altercation, obviously, you're in a life or death situation. So we progressively got into more and more complicated. And then we got into the more gruesome aspects of knife fighting. One of the things that Scott talked about, which was pretty interesting to me, was simply why he believes in administering multiple fatal blows with the blade in an attack. And it really comes back to that accuracy. You may get one, you may not get another one, but compounding damage when you're fighting for your life is one of the quickest ways to get yourself out of that altercation, get you and your family to safety. So we learned a lot about compounding damage and things like that. A lot of combinations. I must say that it felt a lot like boxing. A lot of the same dynamics of combat with regards to human movement and attacking the body were still in play. We looked at a few different ways to hold your knife when attacking. The first part of the day was all about really just understanding the attacking, patterning with your attacking, and fixed blades. And then in the evening we got into, which to me was a little bit more complicated, we got into the folders and working with folders. And I definitely prefer a fixed blade over a folder personally. So that part was a little bit more kind of out of, I was outside of my wheelhouse a little bit, but working with the folders is good too. So we worked with those folders, and we were all given, Artifacts was awesome in that we all got Emerson training knives at the beginning of the course. And we also got from Scott, he put together some these kind of dummy knives that we could beat each other up with and not get hurt. It was fantastic. And then of course, as with all training that I've gone to with Artifacts, they hook you up with a shirt. It's always a good time. It's a really good group of down-to-earth people that have been training. So go check them out. They're training, they're staying sharp. They're offering that full spectrum really of combat skills, everything from blade work to, the last, I did a counter custody with Ed there. And also the follow-on CCW training, and all the way up through rifle and all that stuff. So it's just one of those good training cadres to go to, one-stop shop, and brush up and sharpen all of your combat skills in one place. Nonetheless, Scott's course was fantastic. Great way to spend a single day improving blade work skills. So I just want to give Scott a shout out. I want to say thanks so much for doing what you do. Thanks for making the world a better place by making good people more dangerous. And I look forward to hopefully doing a podcast episode with Scott. Check out the Protector Podcast or Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast to see that podcast episode when it comes out. For the rest of y'all, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next piece of content. So until then, remain peaceful, but not dangerous. This is Byron Rodgers, protector by nature and by trade. Out.
Boom. Hey, what's going on, guys? Byron Rodgers here. I'm hanging with Scott, learning the Libre system, man, and it's been an honor. Thanks for having me out and all that stuff. We're doing a one-day, quick, down and dirty. Scott, who are you? What are you all about, man?
My name is Scott Babb. I'm the founder of Libre Fighting. Libre Fighting is a knife combative system that's designed for the way knife violence unfolds in the Western world. We're geared around using small pocket knives, using those in actual combative dynamics. We focus on attacking the eyes, predominantly disable the opponent, then moving on to lethal targets if necessary. We've trained military, law enforcement, security professionals all over the world, Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, Mexico, UK. Our guys in Mexico specifically have put our teachings into use in the field, brought us back information based on how those altercations unfolded. We've been able to adapt and refine the system doing that and shape it into what we have today.
Awesome. So an extremely modern, really relevant knife fighting system.
Yes, everything we do is geared around how combatives unfolds in an actual scenario. There's no dueling in what we do. We don't square off and take hacks. Everything is based around the idea that someone's in your face with lethal intent and having to fight your way out of that situation.
Yeah, heck yeah, that's awesome. So today, kind of this real quick down and dirty one day that we're doing right now, what kind of stuff are you covering? Just a couple, don't give them all the magic, you know what I'm saying, but just a few little.
So right now, we started off covering eye attacks, how to attack the eyes and face, get the opponent into defensive posture, pressing past those eye attacks, flanking to the blinded side, the side of the face that we've blinded on the opponent, moving to that blind spot, pressing the attack, and taking the opponent out there. Later on, we're going to get into deployment and use of folding knives, how to deploy one in a concealed position, some soft skills, how to use the knife from a concealed position, how to draw it without a potential attacker seeing it so it's already in your hand when the situation unfolds, so you're not having to deploy the knife under duress. Having it out preemptively so you can put it directly into play if the situation escalates.
See, what I love about this is it's that full spectrum warrior thing. We train guns, we train hand to hand, we can take blades, we can make blades, we can get them into more places than most anything else. You can almost always get something. So understanding these things is very important for civilian or private security professionals like myself. I think and I notice it's a skill that takes some finesse. Like you think it's just, you can just pick up a knife and do it, but I notice like, you just for the drilling of it, you really need to almost dry fire and practice.
Yeah, it's a perishable skill just like anything else. Just like boxing, firearms, any kind of martial skill. It's not something that you can do one time and master it and forget about it, then be able to employ those skills years later. It's going to be perishable. It's something that you're going to have to learn and drill on your own, do solo training, partner training, really keep those skills up and let them evolve. Understanding the targeting, really accuracy as well with a knife is super important.
Yeah.
The difference between a lethal shot to an artery and a shot that just needs stitches can be millimeters.
Wow.
So really being precise with the blade and knowing where to hit and being able to hit those targets under duress as well is super important.
That's awesome. Well, Scott, man, it's an honor. It's an honor having you. It's an honor being here. And it's an honor to bring this stuff to you guys. We're going to see some more awesome stuff from Scott. I know it. Boom.